Typhoon Halong struck Japan with an intensity not seen in 2 decades. Winds exceeded 200 kilometers per hour, and torrential rains swept across the Izu Islands in the early hours of Thursday, October 9th. Atmospheric pressure dropped to 955 hectopascals, triggering a sudden rise in sea levels and waves taller than 10 meters. From the first hours of the day, the Izu archipelago was under special warnings for storms, flooding, and landslides. The system began forming days earlier over the western Pacific and rapidly intensified due to unusually warm sea surface temperatures. By the time it approached eastern Japan, Halong had already been classified as a Category 4 severe typhoon, with gusts surpassing 250 kilometers per hour. Japan's meteorological agency, JMA, issued emergency alerts for Hachijojima, Aogashima, and surrounding islands, urging residents to evacuate before impact. In the early hours of Thursday, the storm's structure became more organized. Meteorological satellites showed a perfectly defined eye surrounded by dense, active eye wall. Hachijojima Island was the first to take the direct hit. At 5:24 a.m., weather stations recorded peak wind gusts of 54.7 meters per second, equivalent to nearly 197 kilometers per hour, the strongest ever measured there since 2005. But the worst was yet to come. In just 3 hours, between 4 o'clock and 7 a.m., Hachijojima received 207 millimeters of rain. By noon, totals had reached 356.5 millimeters in 24 hours, setting a new record. Drainage systems collapsed, and streets turned into rivers. The ground, already saturated from previous rains, could no longer absorb water, pushing landslide risk to critical levels. Local authorities urged people to stay away from mountain areas and steep slopes. The Tokyo metropolitan government ordered the immediate opening of evacuation shelters in gyms and public buildings. More than 350 residents were moved to safety in Hachijojima before sunrise. However, the typhoon's strength made rescue and communication efforts extremely difficult. By 8:30 a.m., the Tokyo Electric Power Company confirmed that about 3,000 homes were without power across the hardest-hit islands. Repair crews faced extreme conditions, with downed poles, severed cables, and roads blocked by fallen trees. All flights and ferries were suspended, leaving the islands completely isolated from the mainland. Yet the situation continued to worsen. At 11:45 a.m., the meteorological agency upgraded its special storm warning to the highest alert level, the first such warning issued for Hachijojima in 20 years. Waves as high as 10 meters crashed over breakwaters, and seawater swept onto docks and coastal roads. By 3 p.m. local time, the JMA reported that Halong's center was located southeast of the Kanto region, moving east-northeast at 40 kilometers per hour. Its central pressure remained at 955 hectopascals, with sustained winds of 45 meters per second near the eye. Based on these values, Halong was officially classified as an extremely powerful typhoon. Meteorologists projected that the system would continue moving across the Pacific, skirting Japan's eastern coast and gradually weakening into an extratropical depression by Saturday, October 11th. However, indirect impacts persisted over Tokyo, Kanagawa, and Chiba, where heavy rains, strong gusts, and swollen rivers were reported. Initial reports of structural damage began arriving from Hachijojima around 5 p.m., local authorities confirmed at least 40 homes with roofs torn off and shattered windows. Several vehicles were overturned by the wind, and roads became impassable due to fallen trees and landslides. Fortunately, no casualties were reported. But the worst was yet to come for Japan's mainland coast. In Kanagawa Prefecture, a fisherman lost his life after being swept away by a powerful wave while trying to secure his boat. The Japan Coast Guard warned all vessels to stay clear of the typhoon's projected path. Ferries connecting the Izu Islands to Tokyo were canceled, and dozens of flights from Haneda Airport remained suspended. Meanwhile, the typhoons moved northeast, leaving behind widespread power and communication outages. On Hachijojima Island, residents experienced a total collapse of phone and internet networks. Authorities suspect damage to undersea fiber optic cables linking the island to the mainland. The only functioning communication systems were radio networks and landlines. Still, the risks persisted. Linear rain bands, narrow corridors of intense rainfall, continued forming around the storm's circulation. These bands produced sudden downpours capable of triggering flash floods and new landslides in already unstable terrain. Meteorologists warned that any additional slope failures could block evacuation routes. Satellite images from NASA and Japan's meteorological agency showed a symmetrical, well-defined system with deep convection. Experts describe Halong's structure as spectacular, noting its rapid intensification over waters 1 to 2 degrees Celsius warmer than average. Local authorities in the hardest-hit islands reported severe economic losses. In Hachijojima, landslides cut off the island's main highway and damaged banana and citrus plantations, with crop losses estimated at up to 40%. Preliminary assessments placed total damage at 1.2 billion yen, roughly $8 million. But the threat wasn't confined to Japan. U.S. meteorologists warned that Halong's remnants could merge with a Pacific weather system, strengthening the jet stream that flows toward North America. Forecast models indicated a possible surge of rainfall across California and early season snow in the Sierra Nevada. In Tokyo, the storm's outer bands produced gusty winds and intermittent rain throughout the afternoon. Although the capital avoided major damage, authorities kept weather alerts active until midnight. Residents were urged to avoid coastal areas and remain indoors due to the risk of storm surges and flying debris. As Halong moved farther from Japan, emergency crews began restoring power and communication lines. The meteorological agency reported that average wind speeds had dropped below 20 meters per second, though scattered rainfall persisted in isolated areas. However, the situation worsened again in rural regions. Saturated soil and weakened tree roots heightened the risk of further landslides even days after the storm's passage. Experts advised extra caution in the mountainous zones of the Izu archipelago. In Hachiho Port, preliminary assessments confirmed severe damage to fishing infrastructure. Several warehouses, piers, and vessels were destroyed by high waves. Despite fishermen having moved their boats inland before the storm, material losses were considerable. The meteorological agency highlighted that the event broke multiple local records for both wind and rainfall. The maximum wind intensity recorded in Hachijojima was unprecedented since 2005, and 24-hour rainfall totals doubled the annual average in some areas of the archipelago. Japanese scientists emphasize that Typhoon Halong adds to the growing trend of stronger tropical cyclones in the western Pacific, driven by ocean warming. Warmer sea temperatures accelerate storm intensification, increasing risk for Japan's smaller islands. October 9th will go down in Japan's meteorological history as one of the most extreme days of the decade. Although early warning systems worked effectively and prevented widespread casualties, structural damage and disruptions revealed the ongoing vulnerability of island communities to extreme events. Over the following day, authorities began assessing damage and clearing debris. Ferry services remained suspended, and air routes to the Izu Island stayed closed through the weekend. Power restoration progressed slowly due to the challenging terrain. Community resilience played a vital role in containing the impact. Volunteer brigades distributed food and water, while technical teams repaired power lines and checked ground stability. Radio communication became the main lifeline for isolated residents. Typhoon Halong, designated as the 22nd storm of the season, finally dissipated over the Pacific on October 11th, leaving behind a stark reminder of climate change's growing influence and the importance of preparedness. Despite the damage, Japan managed to withstand one of its toughest meteorological tests in recent years without significant loss of life. Strong infrastructure, effective planning, and rapid response proved decisive in reducing the storm's impact.